Narcissistic abuse can turn you into a loner, someone who prefers to be alone rather than with others, even close friends and family. Why? Because you're dealing with feelings no one seems to get. You might feel anxious around people, scared of being judged, misunderstood, or taken advantage of. The world starts feeling like a dangerous place, so you choose to stay by yourself. Loneliness becomes your constant companion. Sadly, others don't understand and might label you as selfish or a big introvert with no social skills. But today, I'll show you why it's okay to feel this way and what you can do about it. I'm Narcissistic Insights, a psychologist, trauma therapist, and narcissistic abuse recovery professional. In today's episode, we'll discuss 5 reasons why you might prefer staying home after surviving narcissistic abuse. If this sounds interesting, consider subscribing. Your subscription helps spread awareness about narcissistic abuse. Number 1. Being at home means having control over your surroundings, but in a good way. It's not about controlling others, like a narcissist would, but about having predictability and comfort. At home, you can relax, watch TV, and not have to interact with people when you're feeling drained. Your soul feels tired, and dealing with others can feel fake because you just don't have the energy. That's why you prefer staying within your 4 walls. It brings you peace. Others might say, "Don't you get bored? Don't you want to talk to someone?" Maybe not. You need time alone to process everything the narcissist put you through. It helps you understand what happened and why, even if you can't always make sense of it. This need for positive control, where you don't have to deal with judgmental or pushy people, is what makes staying home feel like a dream come true. It might seem boring to others, but to you, it's a lifesaver. How do I know? Because I've lived it for the last 8 or 9 years, and it's been a big part of my healing journey. Number 2. It's your own space, and you can claim it. Words like autonomy, freedom, peace, and serenity become almost foreign to us after living with a narcissist. When the narcissist is in the same space as us, there's no safe corner to retreat to. We might spend a few minutes in the bathroom for some peace, but even there, they find ways to disturb us. They don't even let us sleep, so we have zero autonomy, zero freedom, and no identity left. But when you move into a new space, even if it's just a small room for one person, it feels like a palace. I remember when I first rented a small room. It had a tiny bed and a little kitchen, but it felt like my empire. There was peace, silence, and no one banging on pots or hitting each other. That's the kind of freedom and autonomy that becomes so precious to us. Number 3. You may struggle with agoraphobia, which is a fear of crowded places, small spaces, or just being around too many people. Maybe you have sensitive ears, and loud noises bother you. Being in a crowded place where everyone's talking at once can be overwhelming and triggering. You don't know who to respond to first, and the demand for your attention is too much. I've been there. What might be fun for others feels daunting to you. That's why I used to avoid malls, theaters, and shopping complexes. They weren't my thing. Social anxiety and awkwardness are 2 other issues that often keep survivors of narcissistic abuse from going out and exploring the world. These issues stem from how the narcissist treated you. You could never have a normal conversation with them without being criticized. Your words, tone, and the way you expressed yourself were always wrong in their eyes. Over time, this made you anxious about speaking up, leading to introversion and a change in your personality. This is my personal experience too. I used to stutter a lot in my younger years, not because I lacked confidence, but because of the terror I felt. My father would mock me, slap me, or hit me whenever I talked, so I just stopped expressing myself. I would only say yes or no, and nothing more. That's why social anxiety and awkwardness now make you hesitant to interact with others. You carry that trauma with you, and it makes you misinterpret situations and people's intentions. Your survival brain tries to keep you safe by stopping you from initiating conversations, even if it's not always helpful. Number 4. At home, survivors of narcissistic abuse can control their time. You can decide when and how to engage with others, mostly through virtual means, like work from home. When you're physically around others, you're forced to stay. Even if your body is hurting or you need to tend to your wounds, you can't just tune out when you need to. But at home, you set your own schedule and choose when and how to connect with people. This freedom is another reason why survivors prefer staying home. They don't have to face the social anxiety I mentioned earlier and can express themselves more fully because there's a barrier between them and the people they're communicating with. Number 5. The solitude of a safe space like home facilitate deep healing. Our nervous systems are overwhelmed, and our ability to tolerate stress, known as the window of tolerance, becomes very narrow. Even small things can throw us off balance, making us anxious, panicky, or frozen. This is a sign of overwhelm. When we're overstimulated by people and tasks, we can't function well, and it impacts our performance. But at home, in a safe space, we can start the healing process. What does trauma healing mean? According to the triphasic model of trauma treatment by Judith Herman, the first stage of healing from complex trauma is stabilization. It's not about digging up old memories or venting them out. Stabilization means creating a consistent, predictable, and safe environment that allows your nervous system to calm down. This stability lets you access your rational thinking, make decisions, and grow. In the early stages of healing, this safe space at home is crucial. It keeps you from interacting with others until you're ready. My main goal for this episode is to normalize self-isolation and the preference for staying home. It's not a curse. Society has its own standards and expectations, but I want you to question them. Are they fundamentally narcissistic? Why should you have to act a certain way? True freedom is not just freedom from the narcissist, but from everything narcissistic. Use your experience with the narcissist as a catalyst to move on with your life. Why narcissistic abuse makes you avoid social situations. Narcissistic abuse can make you want to avoid social situations entirely. You might choose isolation over being around others, even your closest friends and family. Why? Because you're dealing with things that others just don't understand, like feeling anxious, awkward, or scared of being judged. The world feels unsafe, so you stay away. As a trauma response, you choose to be alone, but others might not get it. They may call you self-centered or think you're a big introvert with no social skills. But today, I want to explain why it's okay to feel this way and what you can do about it. Number 1. Being at home means being in control. This isn't about controlling others like a narcissist would, but about having a predictable and comfortable environment. Home is where you can relax, watch TV, and not have to talk to anyone if you don't feel like it. After going through so much, you're drained, and interacting with others can feel fake because you're just tired. That's why staying home brings you peace. Others might ask, don't you get bored? Don't you want to talk? But for you, staying home is a way to process everything that's happened, and that's okay. It's about having control over your surroundings, and it's what helps you heal. Number 2. It's your space, and you can claim it. After living with a narcissist, words like freedom and peace can feel foreign. When the narcissist is around, there's no safe corner to hide in, but when you have your own space, even if it's just a small room, it feels like a palace. I remember when I first rented a tiny room with just a bed and a small kitchen, it felt like my empire. There was peace and silence, and no one was there to disturb me. That's the kind of freedom that becomes so valuable to us. Number 3. Crowded places can be overwhelming. Maybe you have a fear of being in crowds or small spaces, or maybe loud noises bother you. Being around lots of people can be triggering, and you don't know who to respond to first. What others might find exciting, you find daunting. That's why you might avoid places like malls or theaters. They're just too much to handle. Social anxiety and awkwardness are common for survivors of narcissistic abuse. These issues come from how the narcissist treated you, always criticizing and shutting you down. Over time, you became anxious about speaking up, which made you more introverted. This is something I experienced too, and it took me a long time to realize it wasn't my fault. The benefits of staying home after narcissistic abuse. After experiencing narcissistic abuse, staying home might feel like the safest option. You might choose to be alone instead of spending time with friends or family. This is because the outside world feels unsafe, and you're dealing with feelings like anxiety, fear of judgment, and the worrying that others won't understand you. Today, I'm here to tell you that it's okay to feel this way, and I'll explain why staying home can be a positive choice. Number 1. Being at home means comfort and control. It's not about controlling others, like a narcissist would, but about feeling safe in a predictable environment. At home, you can relax, watch TV, and not worrying about interacting with people if you don't want to. You're tired, both mentally and physically, so staying home helps you recharge. Others might not get it and ask if you're bored or lonely, but for you, being at home is a way to find peace and process what happened to you. Number 2. Your space is your sanctuary. After living with a narcissist, words like freedom and peace can feel out of reach. When you have your own space, even if it's small, it feels like a breath of fresh air. I remember when I first got my own little room. It was just big enough for a bed and a small kitchen, but it felt like my palace. There was peace, and no one was there to bother me. That's the kind of freedom that becomes so important after what you've been through. Number 3. You might find crowded places overwhelming. Maybe you're scared of being in crowds or small spaces, or maybe loud noises bother you. Being around lots of people can be too much to handle, and you don't know who to talk to first. What others might find fun, you find stressful. That's why you might avoid places like malls or theaters. They're just not for you. Social anxiety and awkwardness are common for survivors of narcissistic abuse because of how the narcissist treated you. They always found something wrong with what you said, which made you anxious about speaking up. This is something I went through too, and it took me a long time to understand that it wasn't my fault. Thank you for joining me in today's episode. I hope this information empowers you to take the necessary steps toward your healing journey. Remember, as tough as it may be, there is life beyond the narcissist, and you deserve to live it fully. Until next time, as always, let the healing begin.